Hello, this is Bill Hamilton with the University of Florida Levin College of Law eDiscovery Tech Feature Series, where we talk about the kind of software that you might want to have, the features that you might want to see in your eDiscovery software to make your work better, to provide better value to your clients, to be efficient, and to get to the truth, because that's what litigation is all about. I'm really happy to have with me Ian Campbell with our third session of the UF Tech Series with iCONECT. Hi, Ian. How are you?
I'm outstanding. Thanks, Bill.
You know, we've talked about a number of problems. One of the problems that always drove me crazy as a litigator was dealing with redactions. They were always troublesome. Of course, you can tell by looking at me, I go back a few years, and I can remember putting the tape on documents and redacting them in the good old days. And then we kind of moved into the eDiscovery era, and it still was cumbersome. Vendors weren't really paying enough attention, I don't think, to the frustrations that attorneys were feeling on redactions, because you'd redact a document, you didn't know if it was really redacted or not. You're scared to death because of this electronic file and turning over something you don't want the other side to see. And then once you redact it, you can't search it anymore, and others can't look at it. So the whole series of problems. And you must have had your clients talking to you about this regularly.
Yeah. If you think back to the day when it was all paper, everything was really a TIFF image, an image. I think people now relate to PNGs and JPEGs, but in the time and still today, it's a TIFF image. The advantage of a TIFF image is it's a very flat image. It's just dots on paper. And when it comes time to redacting that, if you think of a redaction as sort of a rectangle with a top left corner and a bottom right corner, it's nothing more than XY coordinates. It's basically from there to there and draw a triangle. And so back in the day when it was paper documents that were turned into TIFF, it was relatively simple to do from an electronic standpoint. But when it became native files, so you started to have Word docs and Excel spreadsheets and PowerPoints and PDFs, and people start to say, well, I want to redact that as well. It gets that little bit more complicated. And here at iCONECT, we've developed some interesting ways to be able to deal with that in multiple different document types.
Well, that's great, because as an attorney, we're often overwhelmed literally by the amount of redaction we have to do these days. I mean, there is the classic attorney-client privilege document where it's got some privileged communication in it, but other information that's relevant and not privileged. And then what we're seeing today, and of course we're experiencing this all the time with personally identifying information, that the courts are requiring us to redact and file documents. We don't want to turn them necessarily over to the other side unless it's relevant. And there's a wide variety of privileges. Here in Florida, you know, we have not only attorney-client privilege, but sometimes there's interspousal privileges. Sometimes there's psychiatrist-patient privileges that are applicable. So there's a whole series of them. I think we've got 8 or 9 in Florida that we have to pay attention to. And then on top of that, you know, we have the cross-border production issues. That can be very, very tricky, you know, in the larger cases. And I'm seeing it more and more, actually, in my work, that even the medium-sized cases have documents going back and forth around the world. So can you show us a little bit as to what iCONECT is doing, and maybe, you know, what attorneys should be looking for in their software when handling redactions?
Absolutely. I'm going to go do a quick screen share here, and I'll give you an idea what it's all about. What I've brought up here is iCONECT-XERA. I've brought it up here. You can see thumbnail mode in front of you right now. You can see a few of these documents actually have redactions already placed onto them. But I'll go and grab a document right here, and we'll just go and pop that open. One of the advantages of having these in electronic form is that you have the ability, just with a single click, to go and and turn that into an image. And you can see here that now I'm looking at that document. It's an image-based document. And as I start to go through that one by one, maybe I see some information that I want to redact. And maybe that illustration on here is a trade secret. You talked earlier about personally identifiable information. We see things like credit card numbers and insurance policy information and banking information, bank account numbers. That's the kind of information that you might want to redact. And one of the advantages you now have is that there's a couple things I can do here. I can go and do redaction. Now you can see here I can make a black redaction or a white redaction, but I can also come in and I can say, I'm redacting this for a reason. And as opposed to making a square here and actually then having to go in and type on the square, I've actually gone and dropped text right on top of it really at the same time. One other thing that we see certainly with a lot of the government redactions is that when I go to redact, there's specific information I have to put in there. I have to put a reason as to why I redacted it. And now you can see that sits there. And if I wanted to do that multiple times, I can actually now go in and I can copy and paste that again and again and again inside this document or other pages within this document. Another thing I can do is actually go in and let's say everything on here needs to be redacted except for that paragraph right there. I can actually make an inverse redaction. I'll do it on the same document here where I say I want to keep that, but obliterate everything else. And so there's lots of different things you can do on a page-by-page basis, on a document-by-document basis, as these redactions are placed onto the documents. And then, of course, as you and I talked about earlier, you start to get into that QC process. And how do you start to go in and QC these documents?
Yeah, some of those features are really nifty, in terms of expediting the process. And of course, the worst thing that used to happen is that you do a redaction, and maybe someone under your supervision does a redaction. You don't know what's exactly there when you're doing the QC. You can't see it, and there's nothing labeled on top of it. So you're forced kind of to somehow go back to the original, and the whole process becomes cumbersome. Have you figured out a way to make that process easier?
Well, there's a couple of different things here. I mean, one of the advantages we have is that we have a built-in comment section here. So I can actually go in and actually highlight that redaction and go and create a new comment. And is this right? And I can actually go in and actually share that with other members of my team and click go. And what they'll get on their end, you see that little envelope up here. I've got a few messages waiting for me. Right. A supervisor gets that message. They can go and click on it. They can go and look at the comment, zoom directly back and see that redaction that was placed on there and identify whether or not that's for them. Then they go, well, I don't really know what Ian redacted. How can I see that? We've got a unique little feature here where it's actually grayscale the redaction, and I can see underneath it to see exactly what that is. Now, keeping in mind that security-wise, not everybody gets that privilege. You may have a group of people who have come in and done the redaction, and then team number 2 come in, and they are not allowed to see underneath those redactions. So there's multiple different security layers that can be set up at the individual level to make sure that people can only see what they're allowed to see. If you have a group of experts coming in and they've already been redacted, again, you can lock it down so they can't print it, they can't peel it off and look underneath it, and they certainly can't do that feature right there to have a look at what's underneath that redaction.
Well, that's really important. I think I can remember at times, even with my own experts, when I'd be working with them, I just didn't want them to see certain parts of the document because it wasn't germane or pertinent to their testimony. And on a deposition or cross-examination, it could possibly open up more sensitive areas. So
right.
This way we can present them with redacted information right away that they can't see while we're still giving it to them in electronic format. Very cool. And of course, there's the ultimate attorney nightmare of, how can I make sure I don't turn over something that the other side can peel away? That's what keeps us up late at night into the morning.
Absolutely. Well, I'll show you a couple of things. So we've got a tile here at the front, which is a batch manager and a production wizard. But I'll focus specifically on something you can see here, as simple as a print icon. This is where an administrator can come in. They can identify, I want to print this, and I want to include all the highlights, all the redactions. I want everything that's on here, keeping in mind a redaction doesn't have to be a block out. It might be a highlight or an arrow or something that was circled. But I, as a person in charge of the production, have full control as to what document actually makes its way into opposing counsel's hands as part of a production set. The other thing I can do is I can go and save that produced document with the redaction on it in a secondary field. So now this record, when you go to look at the metadata associated with this record, it would in fact have several different, this one only has one link, but it would have several other links, maybe a redacted version of the document, maybe a grayscale version of the document, so that when that production is taking place, they can actually choose which version of the document they want to include in that production set.
Very cool, and it saves a lot of heartburn down the road. Right. Well, thanks a lot, Ian. I really appreciate you joining us for just a few minutes to talk about these neat features that you have in XERA that iCONECT put into it. And if someone wants to learn a little bit more about iCONECT, how can they get in touch with you?
They can get a hold of us at www.iconnect.com. That's iConnect with one N.com. Send an email to info@iconnect.com. And as you know, Bill, this is the third in a series of pretty exciting videos we've done for the eDiscovery industry, and it's a pleasure to have done 3 so far, and looking forward to knocking down a few more.
All right, Ian, thank you very much. And again, this is Bill Hamilton at the University of Florida Levin College of Law in our Tech Feature Series, talking and showing you what features you might want to see in your electronic discovery software. Thank you very much.
Thanks.